right, we've put this off for a while, but I got a birthday cake waiting on me. Let's talk about some wrestling from the past few days. And this week, I wanted to have some WWE representation in the program. And instead of doing the 3-hour death march known as Raw, which is just way too fucking long, I decided, because of the buzz, the report that they are trying to fix the sabotage on NXT, I thought I'll check into NXT. We enjoyed that program up until 1 year ago last week when they changed it to a Nickelodeon game show and did the psychedelic colors and the, unicorn vomit and the whole 9 yards, and took away all the good talent, changed everybody's name, and generally shit all over the whole thing. Well, now it's a year later, and they celebrated the 1-year anniversary of NXT 2.0 by admitting, not in so many words, but by admitting they'd made a mistake and taken away the logo and all the colors and the 2.0 business and going back to just NXT with now, instead of a black and gold, a black and white and gold logo. So, and I heard that Shawn Michaels was the one that made the announcement that they were ever changing and ever evolving and they'd always be there, blah, blah, blah. So, well, I'll see what they've done. And I even actually suggested that you, in your busy schedule, Brian, watch some of this. And you did watch some of it. And I guess maybe we watched the wrong week. We picked the wrong week to quit sniffing Raw, because they changed the program at the end, and the program that they presented before the end of this thing was the same NXT that we've been laughing at. So I guess they got it out of their system, right? But should we briefly run through the things that they presented to the people, under the guise of a wrestling program, and at least establish it can't get any worse. It's got to get better from here. Whatever they're going to do to it, whatever changes they're going to make, it's got to be better than this, right?
Well, you already mentioned the logo, right?
Yes.
There it is. That's the NXT review, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see what happens next week. That's the only thing you have to talk about.
Well, we didn't get to Shawn Michaels' announcement that they made us wait for, but what are the names of the people that comprise the team of Pretty Deadly? They introduced them not as Ricky and Robert, the Rock and Roll Express, or Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane, the Midnight Express, or whoever. Just Pretty Deadly. Who are these people? Who were they before they did this to them?
It's Mr. Pretty and Mr. Deadly.
Well, you looked up the dildos on the highway and found out that I wasn't yanking your chain about that. So the first match on the anniversary episode of NXT was Julius and Brutus Creed against Pretty Deadly in a cage match. So they started off with the cage match. You can go snowblind from this show, so I'm glad they're going to be changing it, because between the bright lights and the colors and the finger painting on LSD and blah, 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 where I was going to go with that is Pretty Deadly, whatever their names are and whoever they were before, they look pretty uncomfortable being made to dress and look pretty ridiculous. And I'm wondering if they were legitimate potential wrestlers before, and I guess they're from the UK, were they normal human beings, and then they bleached their hair out and stuck them in these goddamn pink netted half shirts and whatever. And it was an all four in the ring at the same time cage match, where the only way to win the cage match is to get out of the cage and the door's not locked. So they're going back to that old WWE horseshit cage match rule business. And I've said a million times, it makes no sense. There's no reason to have a cage match unless you're locking the people in the cage so they can't get out or somebody else can't get in. So now they're going to do stagey, phony-looking shit, green talent to begin with, trying to get out of an unlocked cage. And the first thing they do instead of heading for the door is try to climb over the top of it. So And within the first 60 seconds of the match, all four of them were fighting on the top of the cage. So this was 20 minutes before this was over with. Did you see any of this?
No.
Good.
No. I mean, I saw like it was a cage match when I was zooming past on Hulu,
yes,
but I didn't watch it. No.
Well, we're getting to the good stuff in a minute. Lash Legend versus Fallon Henley. And her manager, Fallopian Tube. I don't know where the fuck they come up with these goddamn. This match looked like two astronauts walking on the moon. Their awkwardness was actually defying gravity. And Fallon Henley went over, so I guess they've given up on making Lash a legend. Remember, they were pushing her when she first came in. Had a talk show and everything. Did you see the bad acting and unrealistic material exchange between Von Wagner and the manager, Robert Stone, and two girls and a giant Indian guy, Hindu Indian, not American Indian?
No, I didn't see any of this. It's news to me that Robert Stone's back.
Okay, well, I think it was him. I haven't seen him in a while, but that was bad. And then, remember the tag team of those two good-looking Southern boys, Briggs and Stratton? And they both look like they can fucking go, and they both look like Southern boys, and now apparently Henley is with them, and they run into Toxic Attraction, Mandy Rose and Jane Wayne Gacy and Gigi Allen, in the backstage area. And which one of it is one of the guys? Is it Briggs or is it Stratton? He's got to act like they're still doing this. Remember, they were doing this a year ago. And I mentioned at the time that these guys, it was going to doom them. And apparently it doomed them because they're still in the same fucking spot. The one guy has to act like an awkward doofus around women. Now, if you told both these good old Southern boys to go out there and act naturally, probably like they would normally, or like two good old Southern boys their age and their look would act, they'd be fucking everything in that goddamn locker room. And that's why that the Southern guys would like them, because they were fucking everything in that locker room. And that's why the Southern girls would like them, because even if they ain't in the locker room, they'd know they might be next. But as it is, they're mindless, childish, phony, stagey goofuses and dorks that girls wouldn't want to fuck and that guys would think are fucking dorks. So who's left, dogs and cats? Are they going for the fucking pet lobby to be fans of these guys?
I didn't see any of this.
Good. I'll keep moving. Because this is if anybody in NXT is taking notes, this is brief, free commentary on what's wrong with your program and why the young people that you apparently want to watch it ain't interested in fucking watching it. Because they're not that young mentally. Everybody acts like they're fucking 8 mentally on this program. Toxic Attraction was in the ring then for a promo, and they have tried. I'm not talking about they, the talent. I'm talking about they, the company, and the talent. Everybody has tried so hard with this gimmick and tried to send out by mental telepathy that these girls are more than so-so workers and more than a so-so gimmick. And I've mentioned that they even have them describing themselves in these weird, unnatural ways that someone else doing publicity about them might describe them as, but you don't talk about yourself like. So we live in the fast lane and the rock star lifestyle and blah, 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 and all this stuff. Compared to the top Attitude Era female stars, and actually compared to the top female talent on the main roster, these girls are not exceptionally attractive by that standard, nor exceptionally talented in the ring. And So they've tried to will the people to see something they're not seeing with this gimmick. And then, Alba Fire. You know her, don't you? Alba Fire. Everybody in the world is named Alba or Melba or whatever. Alba Fire comes out with a baseball bat and beats up the two Stooges, Jane Wayne and Gigi, and then hits her finish on Mandy Rose. And boom, and all the heels. So the one girl comes out and beats up all three of these heels. And then we go to the back for a Cora Jade video talking about Wendy Choo, and then more Wendy Choo horseshit. She's in her pajamas and her little thing says choo choo on it. And it's like watching if it was legal to have professional wrestling between 12-year-old girls. That's what's going on here. But then we get to the part of the program, Brian, that I made you watch. The debut of a brand new super diva. And I heard about this, and somebody had tweeted, what in the world is Cornette going to say? And it was before I intended to watch the program anyway, but it was before I'd actually watched it. So I'm looking out. All I know is this person's name. And here it became. You saw it, right? You saw the whole thing.
Yeah, I'll just get it out of the way before you even ask my only thoughts. It's like if Mabel fucked Goldust, this is what would happen.
So, ladies and gentlemen, all of you who didn't watch NXT, and that's a bunch of you, here's what we saw. Super Diva popped up on the screen. And in a spotlight in the entranceway in front of the screen was a fat guy sitting in a chair wearing sunglasses. And the chair spins around until you see this fucking character. He stands up. He's wearing a full bodysuit of shiny, multicolored pleather. And he's blowing kisses to the fans on his way to the ring. And as you mentioned, there's an element, a lot of influence of Goldust on this, where he's constantly feeling himself and refreshing himself with and the gestures that Goldust did. And as well, it does look like Mabel, if Mabel lost 200 pounds and didn't have any of the skin tightened up. In this outfit, he looks like if Mabel was a popped Macy's parade balloon. A human waterbed, perhaps, might be a more apt description. You could show a drive-in movie on his bulbous ass, and his man boobs look like two possums fighting in a pillowcase. And this exhibition is what's coming down the entranceway to get into the ring to fight a guy named Sean Gallagher. And the announcer was actually trying to, and I mean, you could tell in his voice that he was asked to impart this information, and he was doing it with a verbal eye roll. But the announcer was building this guy up as a big deal, beloved by the fans. He brings joy to everyone. Listen to the crowd, the ovation. They're at their performance center location, and it's all the friends and family, and they mustered up 30 people to fucking chant Quincy, Quincy. Quincy Elliott is this guy's name. And he started the match by shaking his ass at the guy, feeling himself up like Goldust, and doing an odd little dance that made his mud flaps bounce over and over. I'm surprised he didn't blacken both of his eyes. This guy, I've seen fat guys all the way up to the McGuire twins in wrestling, and I've seen giants, and I've seen oddities, and I've seen people with deformities. I have never seen anybody that looked less like that they should be a professional athlete of any type being portrayed as a professional athlete than this guy. I could win a bodybuilding contest against this guy as I sit here right now if me and him were the only ones in it. That's how bad he looks. And obviously there was very little match. The guy took his arm, grabbed a wrist lock. He rolled through the wrist lock and blew a kiss at the guy, threw 2 punches, hit the ropes in a very odd way, came off with a flying uppercut, dragged the guy over to the corner, did more like Goldust meets Yokozuna, gets up on the ropes, does the Goldust thing, and does the bonsai drop. 1, 2, 3. And I thought, I have really got to pick up the pace of my fast forwarding. What is the audience for something like this? How are they're trying to revamp their program on this same program? They're changing the logo. They're making a statement that they're always going to, they might evolve, but they're always going to be around, which is another way of saying we're sorry what we've showed you the last year. They obviously Triple H has in mind to make NXT more important, and they've supposedly made Shawn Michaels the one in charge. Is Shawn Michaels now unable to control his sense of humor and thinks we ought to, but I mean, what's next after this? JoJo the dog-faced boy? How is it's not like there've been a ton of fucking rotten-looking physical specimens in one way or another in wrestling that were talented at either speaking or working and could draw some money because of their bizarre appearance. I can't see any of them in this guy. This had to be some kind of rib, some kind of joke. Somebody thought it'll be funny. Look at the state of him. You can't tell me they signed this guy to a developmental contract. And has he ever wrestled before anywhere? Where did he come from? Why would you do this to a program that you're about to fucking revamp? So those are a lot of questions that you don't have answers to, but I'm completely in the dark of why, especially on this particular week, they would present something that looked like that.
I don't have any answers for you. I go back to
have much silence.
I go back to what you said earlier. I don't know what the audience is for this. I would like to see him against Nikita Lyons. That would be interesting. But I don't know what the audience is for this. I think there's an audience for... I'm a broken record at this point. There's an audience for serious wrestling without it turning into a talent show for fucking people that didn't do the talent show in school. I don't know what this is, and I don't like it.
And see, this isn't even cosplay wrestling, the gymnastics, the high school cheerleaders. It isn't that aspect of it. It isn't garbage deathmatch wrestling. It's just, it's a parody. It's just, look, let's see how much of a joke we can make this business and anybody that wants to get in it, and how bad we can make our own product and decision-making look. It's not like this particular style of wrestling is not for you and me, Brian, but has its fans like with, as I said, the Flyers or the Lucha guys or the garbage match guys, or this guy is not only not good at any style of wrestling, but the only person that would be a fan of this on a wrestling program is somebody who wants to make fun of wrestling because they don't like it or they want it to look stupid or silly, to downgrade it. Well, in that case, not a lot of those people are probably watching the wrestling program. Just a thought.
Maybe he could wrestle. Hey, look, this is the first time we saw him.
I saw him throw 2 punches, hit the ropes, throw that uppercut forearm, and do the bonsai drop. I guarantee you that's the 4 or 5 best things he can do, or elsewise it wouldn't have just been that.
How many weeks do you think he's going to overdo it with the blowing kisses and touching himself before he realizes he's doing it too much?
He got that about 45 seconds into his debut.
Oh, it was just so much. Someone's got to talk to him and say, hey, a little bit, but the whole match, you can't do it.
But anyway, so that was that. And again, that's what people were talking about after the fucking thing. Besides the revamp and the new logo, that was the only thing that got any attention, and it was the wrong kind. And then they had, and there was a long dissertation on this, but they had Cameron Grimes in a handicap match against Tony D'Angelo and his buddy Stax, old Stax. And they're still having Grimes shave his body, which makes him look like a small, pale, hairy child, possibly the aforementioned JoJo the Dog-Faced Boy. He had some oomph, but I don't know. They keep fucking with his hair. Anyway, so Joe Gacy, and his stooges come out. He's got some kind of spooky, demented group of two people following him around because he's somehow spooky and demented. He looks like Kevin Steen if Steen was a clerk at an auto parts store. In the fucking outfit he wrestles in. It's a gray button-up shirt and black pants. What the fuck? And it's not like this guy has a look of some kind to begin with, so you can wear bland clothing and still look like a star. He looks like a fucking auto parts clerk. Not quite as fat as Steen. So Gacy ends up tagging in and makes a comeback. Even if Cameron Grimes didn't want his help, didn't ask for it, didn't like it, but they win anyway. And then Gacy's stooges turn around and beat up Cameron Grimes. And I thought, with the look of the stooges, who look pretty fucking rough, and Gacy looks like some pudgy guy sitting in the crowd somewhere, and poor Cameron Grimes, without his body hair, looks like the guy working at the fucking filling station over in Itabena, Mississippi. And it makes you've seen many tapes of the ICW show the Paphos did in the late 70s, early 80s.
I've seen what's out there, of course.
Okay, this talent makes the ICW TV shows look like fucking Mid-South Wrestling to me. It just, goddamn, it's just, I guess the only thing they're going for is telling the audience, hey, look at these guys on this TV show. You could actually do this. You people out there look the same as these schlubs. That's the only selling point I can think of. And then they had a sit down with Braun Breaker, who, my God, you got all this other shit, and then there's Braun Breaker. He looks like a star. He doesn't say anything silly. He's well-spoken. He looks great. They recapped his last year in the company and the title story. And this was the only segment of this program that actually belonged on a wrestling program. You see a grown adult pro wrestler speaking seriously and looking like something. And you can't tell me that anybody watching this program wouldn't think that you could line up Tony D'Angelo and Stax and Cameron Grimes and Quincy Jones and Mahatma Kane Jeeves and whoever else on this program, and a Braun Breaker wouldn't fucking stick all their heads up their ass, one right after another, in 5 minutes while drinking a fucking Gatorade with the other hand. And I think this is the biggest problem with their developmental system. You can't develop grown adults into bigger, better-looking grown adults. So you need to start picking them from scratch. Tyler Bate. Did you see him? He looks like an anorexic moondog. He's got the blonde hair and a long, scraggly beard, but he only looks like he weighs 175 pounds. He looks like the runt of Spot's litter.
Is that the guy we saw? He didn't look like that the way you're describing him, but he's the guy that had, was it an NXT UK, him and Pete Dunne? Were those the matches we watched?
Yes. He looked normal then. Something's happened. He wasn't any bigger, but at least he looked a little more normal. Then, again, Nikita Lyons and Zoe Stark against Ariana Grace and Kiana James. James Jones. It's fun watching Nikita Lyons defy gravity. But this show is more girl wrestling than men wrestling, and I don't see why a fucking girl would watch this program. I don't see why a guy would watch this program, but especially a girl. In this day and age, there used to be more female wrestling fans than male wrestling fans. That is not the case anymore and hadn't been for 30 years since the guys quit looking like men and quit playing with the fucking rats. So apparently we know Nikita Lyons' roundhouse kick is made out of potatoes, or elsewise this little girl that took it was just scared to death of it because she put her hand up and turned 3 feet before the foot came. And then Lyons hit the clam slam. 1, 2, 3. That was what won the Name Her Finish contest, wasn't it? On the internet, the clam slam.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Could have called it the slop drop, but I guess that would have been sexist. Then a bunch of guys had a fake fight in a parking lot. And I don't know who all these guys were. Some of them were security guards. They had security shirts. Some of them were allegedly wrestlers, I guess. They were all in street clothes. Nobody was identified, and they only spoke for about 15 seconds before they went to fighting. But while this fight was being broken up in the parking lot, one of the security guards had the presence of mind and the compassion to tell another security guard, hey, we've got this. You go in there, you got a big match coming up. In the middle of breaking up the fight that they didn't have, and they weren't breaking up, but one security guard was, so kind to his security mate to say, we got it, you go in and don't miss your big chance. Because they did a deal where Javier Bernal, who is another 170-pound fucking diminutive 5-foot-something wrestler, had to wrestle Hank Walker, who's one of the quote-unquote security guards that is a wrestler in training. And he comes out with no music and wearing street clothes to put that over and acts like he doesn't really know how to wrestle, or just like a regular NXT guy. And actually, old Hank Walker just kept it basic, didn't fuck anything up, had great fire on his comeback, and his shit looked better than most of the people on this show, and he won the match 1, 2, 3. He still looks kind of like shit physically, but he can work on that with some sit-ups. But he's tall enough and heavy enough that there's something to work with there. And then one of the other things that got a pop on this show, did you see the NFL commercial, Brian?
No.
A bunch of people like creamed themselves watching NXT because an NFL commercial, they're plugging Aaron Rodgers, one of the NFL players, is using Cult of Personality. And all of a sudden you heard, and people on Twitter apparently lost their mind thinking that Punk was going to be featured on NXT some kind of way. It was the NFL commercial. And then finally, the main event, Carmelo Hayes and his friend Trick, who is still bout it, by the way, did indeed come to the ring, and they did Wesley a favor by hurting him earlier in the night, maybe as one of those mini backstage fights, because now he don't have to risk his North American title. But Solo Sikoa bursts on the scene, and this was surprising. He had just made his debut on the main roster, helping the Bloodline. So now he's going to challenge for the North American title. And they start this match, and it was pretty good. Hayes took a big old backdrop. It's great just to see a backdrop these days. And he took a big one, and they go 2 minutes, and they go to the break. And it's 4 minutes till 10, so I know, okay, they're going to run over. But when they came back, Sikoa was the one guy really that picked up the in-ring on this show. Good action. You knew who the face and the heel was. Hayes takes great bumps. And finally, Solo wins the North American title with Splash off the top. And one would think that would be counterintuitive because he's starting on the main roster. But now the story is everybody in the bloodline, both the Usos and Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa, have a championship of some description. So I can get into that. But I'm still thinking, now the main event's over. It's already after 10 o'clock. Where's this big Shawn Michaels interview that I've been led to believe happened, where he makes this big statement, and they pop up a video, and it's Shawn Michaels, and it's a graphic voice of Shawn Michaels, WWE Hall of Famer, and he's reading a written statement for like 30 seconds of how, as I mentioned, we apologize for what we've done to this program in the last year, and it's going to change. And then they drop the 2.0 off the logo and reveal the new logo. And that we didn't even see Michaels' face. He's there all the fucking time. They couldn't get him in front of a camera.
May have been for the best.
But I mean, he's a star. People know who he is. It couldn't hurt to have Shawn Michaels on NXT, because then they may think, oh shit, he may do something, or he may be on again, or who else is going to come to NXT? It might create some reason to watch this fucking thing. Besides, these are not just unheard of names in the wrestling business. Everybody in NXT has a name that you've never heard before as a name for a human person. So if we can get some names that people recognize on NXT, that might cause other people to want to watch it. Just a thought I had. But that was NXT. Did I miss anything from what you perused, or you just saw the fat guy in the statement?
Yeah, I can't believe you just went this long about this crappy show. No one cares about NXT.
Well, I wanted to make sure that everybody knew this is what they're trying to fucking make us watch. And just because they dropped the 2.0 doesn't mean they didn't drop the ball on this program. Hamina. Well, if you've got bigger and better wrestling news to impart than me tearing this thing apart, where should we listen, pal? Where should we go for all the late-breaking, important wrestling news?
You know, right before you went to that transition, I was about to hit you with, well, it's your show, and then you do this. So what a nice man you are.
Yeah.
The wrestling news, of course, Arcadian Vanguard's wrestling news. Each and every day, every morning, we deliver to you a wrestling newscast minus opinion, minus conjecture, just the facts, some of our reporting, and of course, we let you know everything else that has happened over the previous day. Check it out. If you want to hear straight wrestling news without any gimmicks, without any silliness, without any opinions, check out the wrestling news. Go to thewrestlingnews.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcast. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed and checked it out already. And we are on YouTube, on the official Arcadian Vanguard YouTube channel, every day, The Wrestling News. Check it out for your wrestling news each and every morning. Of course, I want to make mention of some of the other fine shows on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. This week, Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam. John looks at the AWA in 1982. Hulk Hogan before he got to the WWE. Check it out today at McAdamPod.com, or look for Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And of course, the 605 Superpodcast, The Mothership! Yeah, I like that. It makes me feel good. Go through the archives at 605pod.com. Let me break that glass again. Hit it. Yeah. Did I actually break something on my desk? Well, go through the archives at 605pod.com or listen wherever you find your favorite podcasts. The Mothership.